Okay, here we are on December the 19th in the year of our Lord 2025, and I've got a lot of great information for you tonight. So let's go ahead. Let me click the link to Mertech on Rumble. As you can see, they're advertising here the Misfits Mania, December 20th, with Tate and Demore. I don't know if I'll be watching that, but by all means, if you want to, go ahead. Anyway, this is the video we'll be going over tonight, the episode 1781. Let me go ahead and click on that, jump in here. Pause that, close out the live chat, slide down here and click the show more button to expand out the description box. And we have information from ACLJ, American Center for Law and Justice, Daryl Adogg, Vince Dow, and Wendy Bell. But before we get into that, I do have some shout outs from Big Lamont 58 or 54, just started following my channel. MLKB 20 just started following my channel, so thank you very much for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in tonight and I hope you enjoy the content. All right, Debbie BS reposted my episode 1780 from last night. SheB63 commented on my daily news wrap-up from the 18th, and Debbie BS commented on my daily news wrap-up from last night. Also, Carolyn DeBono, yeah, I guess that's an I, DeBono commented on my episode 1779. Foxy Grandma commented on my episode 1780. Debbie BS commented on my extra 564A, 564B, and 564C. Debbie BS also commented on my extra 565A and extra 565B. So thank you folks for your comments and reposting my videos. I greatly appreciate that, as well as the support. So let me go ahead and give this a thumbs up. Boom. There you go. And if you don't mind, please give me a thumbs up here. Right below the video that you're watching is a thumbs up icon. If you could click that, I would appreciate that also. Okay. Coming down here, American Center for Law and Justice, Sekulow. Trump Mar-a-Lago raid intel released by FBI. Well, I wonder what that's all about. Oh, wait a minute. Let
All
me
around
jump
the
back here. You know what? I wonder if let me come back over here and start it from right here. Okay, let me get this back to the beginning.
Unclassified. What was released from the FBI to Senator Grassley was unclassified, declassified emails between the DOJ and the FBI discussing the issues surrounding a search warrant, which led to the raid on Mar-a-Lago. And what we find repeatedly throughout these emails that started in June of 2022 and went all the way until 4 days before the actual raid itself was an FBI in the Washington field office that was against executing a search warrant on Mar-a-Lago. They did not believe they had probable cause to get the search warrant on Mar-a-Lago. They were frustrated with the DOJ, which had told them things like, I frankly don't give a blank about the optics in a search warrant executed on Mar-a-Lago. And this was all memorialized in memos, in emails, as the DOJ continued to push forward with a raid on Mar-a-Lago. We see that the FBI was concerned about this. And so I wanted to turn to our chief counsel, Jay Sekulow, now and get your thoughts on this. When you saw this news came out about the FBI's response to it, what was your first impression on this?
Well, the FBI agents that raised the concern about the lack of probable cause were correct. And the Department of Justice response with the expletive of I don't care, blank, how the atmospherics look, also showed you the callous indifference they had, not only to the former president, who's now again president of the United States, but also to the process itself. So I think this is not surprising, but I do really believe at the end of the day that there will be people held accountable. I know that's the great frustration, but we're seeing that already. There's hearings, there's oversight hearings. We're being very aggressive at the ACLJ in our government accountability project, going after these issues. So I'm optimistic that those responsible will be held liable. Does it take time? You bet. But I'm optimistic that at least the information's coming out and there'll be action taken on it.
Yeah, I mean, they say, the FBI, they didn't believe it had probable cause. I mean, that's huge right there. But they also said this is not the actual best way to retrieve documents. This is for the optics. That's what it's all about. It is for the raid, the criminalization of the former president at the time, when in fact, usually when these kind of situations come up and such shortly after someone leaves office, if the FBI really just wants to go back to retrieve documents to make sure they're in the right place, they would do so in a much more calm way, speaking with the former president's team and go in there and get the files they need. They wouldn't do a raid with guns out.
Remember what they were trying to do here, and this is important. They were trying to disqualify President Trump from running again. So you had it in two contexts. You had all these indictments that came down, authorized by Merrick Garland, known by Joe Biden, who was president, while President Trump was running for re-election. And at the same time, and this is, I think, equally important, they were already planning to try to get him removed from the ballots of various states so he wouldn't get the nomination if, in fact, which he was, the Republicans' nominee for president. We know that firsthand because we represented the Republican Party of Colorado at the Supreme Court of the United States on that very issue.
So one of the ways that we talked about this yesterday, Logan and I, was when you think about the context of the work the ACLJ was doing at the same time as this going on, we were defending whistleblowers that the Biden administration, the FBI at the time, had put in a sort of professional purgatory where they could not get a new job. Their security clearance was suspended, and all because they were trying to speak out against weaponization and abuses they saw going on within the Department of Justice and the FBI at the time. We see here that there were individuals within the FBI that were concerned and did not believe they had the proper steps to move forward. We also are talking about this project that we're working on, the chilling effect. And I think it ties in directly because when the federal government uses their heavy hand against whistleblowers, against Christians, against conservatives, what does it have on that? It has a chilling effect. It causes people to not want to speak out. And that's exactly what we're fighting here for at the end of the year, is to push back, to protect the First Amendment, to protect whistleblowers. And I think it's the perfect time to bring up something like this because it's what we fight for every day here.
Well, we fight for it and we got justice. Remember, we represented whistleblowers that have now been made whole because of our litigation. And so, look, we get results. But, we've got this campaign going on. We're at the last 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, of the end of the year. These are the biggest 2 weeks for the American Center for Law and Justice. And I want to ask everybody that's listening to this broadcast right now, we've talked about the victories that we've had at the Supreme Court, representing the whistleblowers, going after government abuse, protecting free speech. Here's the issue. Will you stand with us in this matching challenge right now as we move this forward? And I will tell you, the response over the last 3 days has been great. We want to continue this momentum into the end of the year.
Okay, he's actually asking for donations, so the link to this video, I did update my description box while you were watching that. You might need to do a refresh on it to get the right link, but the link to this is in the description box if you want to go there and help them out. Okay, this video does come from American Center for Law and Justice. I am following the channel. I've given them a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here. Slide down and see what, oops. Since I updated, I had to open my description box again. Adogg, oh my goodness, Trump snaps and calls ICE immediately after Ilhan Omar just reportedly did this. Okay. Sometimes he exaggerates it a little bit, but let's see what he has to say.
Let's go ahead and dive straight into this because even President Trump has some things to say. But before we get to President Trump, check this out about Cece. It's a breaking. Representative Ilhan Omar had her birth year changed on Minnesota's official legislative website to say she was born in 1982, not 1981, according to Alpha News. If Omar was born in 1981, she likely would have not been eligible to become a U.S. citizen through her father's naturalization and would have had to go through the process on her own. So this is a face of fraud. And you can see it say breaking news, breaking. This got 3.3 million views. And that's the reason why she's panicking right now. This is what's going on. This right here is a face of a liar. This is a face of a liar. So let's move on to this right here. And this is something that President Trump had said last night in front of the whole nation. Said breaking in front of tens of millions of Americans, President Trump calls out Somali fraudsters who are stealing taxpayer dollars in Minnesota. Let's check out what President Trump had to say.
American-born citizens, 100%. In the end, government either serves the productive, patriotic, hardworking American citizen, or it serves those who break the laws, cheat the system, and seek power and profit at the expense of our nation. Look at Minnesota, where Somalians have taken over the economics of the state and have stolen billions and billions of dollars from Minnesota and indeed from the United States of America. And we're going to put an end to it. For so long as before my election, the vast majority of good and decent Americans were forced to watch as corrupt politicians plundered the halls of power. American-born citizens, 100%.
Wow. Just the fraud that's going on in Minnesota. And like I said, President Trump is tired of it. He is tired of it. And then Eric Daughter said, one of my favorite moments from President Trump tonight, he is so spot on about what they did to us. And, you know, he pretty much talking about the United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations, which took advantage of us at levels never seen before.
I think most would agree. I was elected in a landslide, winning the popular vote and all 7 swing states and everything else, with a mandate to take on a sick and corrupt system that really just took the wealth from people and crushed the dreams of the American people. For the last 4 years, the United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations, which took advantage of us at levels never seen before. They flooded your cities and towns with illegal aliens. They decimated your hard-earned savings. They indoctrinated your children with hate for America. They just released a level of violent felons that we had never seen to prey on innocent. They caused war. They caused mayhem. They caused a horrible situation all over the globe. But now you have a president who fights for the law-abiding, hardworking people of our country, the ones who make this nation run, who make this nation work.
Wow. Salute to President Trump. And these the Democrats that keep trying to put this man down. Oh, Donald Trump ain't doing this. Donald Trump ain't standing on his promises. That's a lie. This man delivered on every promise he made. Every promise this man made, he delivered on it. But yet, Democrats will get on TV. Donald Trump lied. He ain't delivered on this. He ain't delivered on this. Last time I checked, it ain't been an illegal alien that came across the border in over 8 months. In over 8 months, not one illegal alien has crossed the border under President Trump's watch. So, and I want to show y'all this because as Tim Walz got caught up in his fraud, you know what Tim Walz tried to do? He said that the majority of the crime is committed by white men. That is something that Ilhan Omar said as well, pretty much blaming white men, said white men is the cause for the most deaf in this country and stuff like this. So I don't know if Tim Walsh heard Ilhan Omar say that, and I'll show y'all the clip in just a second of Ilhan Omar pretty much saying the same thing, that white men is the problem, that we should be worried about white men. And come to find out, Tim Walsh said the same thing after finding out that Somalis has been stealing up to $8 billion in the course of over 4 years, after Tim Walsh was confronted by over 400 employees that told him the fraud was going on, and he told them to shut up. He told them to keep quiet. Don't open your mouth. Keep this a secret. And now that he got caught. Now listen to him spin this out and blame this on white men. We should be worried about white men.
Members and leaders from the Somali community to say, we need to look at ourselves. We need to hold our own neighbors accountable, because look at the damage that this has done to our community. What do you want to hear more from, instead of just saying, don't blame us? Do you want to see more ownership and oversight from within this?
Look, it's not law-abiding citizens. If that were the case, there's a lot of white men should be holding a lot of white men accountable for the crimes that they have committed. I think
this man said white men. They asked him a question about what's going on, and he bring up white men. Listen,
fighting citizens. If that were the case, there's a lot of white men should be holding a lot of white men accountable.
I wonder if he's talking about himself here. Okay, yeah, there are a lot of law-abiding citizens, and we're not concerned about them. We're concerned about, it doesn't matter what color your skin is, if you're committing fraud and stealing taxpayer dollars, or any dollars. That's what we're concerned about, Mr. White Man. Unbelievable.
For the crimes that they have committed. I think for the community to maybe educate their population, because I think what you're seeing here is there's secondary victims in this, that there's providers inside the community that are then victimizing the community themselves by signing them up, because when we're going to some of these people, they're like, I had no idea I was in this program. So I think it's asking us then, for every crime, which of course the majority being committed by white men, asking us to do more about that. I think it's crime in general.
Oh my God.
And I think the biggest thing on this is just making sure that we're educating the population. And again, this is 80 people or so that have been convicted in this, maybe some more in that.
Tim Walsh is man, no wonder President Trump called this man a retard. So out of all of that, what do? We should worry about white men. White men is the one that causing the most crime. That's what we need to be worried about. Just insane. So we get over here to Chicago, Ray. He said this is the video that triggered Ilhan Omar. Because like I said before, Ilhan Omar and Tim Walsh in some deep, deep trouble. And I want y'all to check this out. So AJ Kern just spoke with Liz Collins, and she found that Ilhan Omar was actually 18 the year that her father became eligible, not 17. This is a derivation of citizenship.
Oh, AJ, having run.
Good to see you, Liz, and thank you for providing the opportunity for me today.
President Trump has been calling Congresswoman Ilhan Omar into question recently, and White House border czar Tom Homan has confirmed there is an open investigation concerning her immigration status. You're no stranger to politics, I know, AJ, having run for Congress yourself, but you have been raising red flags about Omar for years now. I know there's a bit of a backstory here, but walk us through what you've uncovered.
Right. Well, in 2019, I was looking at something about Ilhan Omar on the internet, and it occurred to me to look at her birth year. I don't know why, or birth date. And so I used an age calculator and found out that she was actually 18 in the year 2000 when her father became eligible to apply for citizenship. She claimed that she became a citizen at the age of 17. So when I realized she wasn't actually 17, I created a video explaining derivation of citizenship and how that works. So to me, this was like completely a red flag.
Yep.
That I had figured out that she actually wasn't a minor when her father could apply for naturalization. So,
wow. So she was 18 years old and lied and said that she was 17 so she can use her father to get in. So she didn't have to do it herself. So that's what I told y'all. It's like every day more stuff is coming out about Ilhan Omar, and we see the reason why she's acting the way she's acting. Even on her post right here, Chicago Ray say this is Omar's post from last night. The immigration walls are closing in on Omar. Tom Homan is in on it. Let's go. And you can see Ilhan Omar right here text and says, seriously, how many more lies can you all make up and still whip yourselves into frenzy asking for a friend? So pretty much she's still calling everybody a liar, everybody just lying on her. This is what she's still running with. But like I said, at the end of the day, nobody is a fool. And not even that, even Tucker Carlson pretty much called it out and said Ilhan Omar is not serving the American people. And of course she's not. She just said plenty of time that she got her position to help her people, the Somalians. She's said that plenty of time. I done showed y'all them videos plenty of time. But I want y'all to listen to, Tucker Carlson, say something about this. Of course, I had to speed up the audio a little bit because Tucker Carlson got like some music or something playing in the back. I don't want to get copyrighted, so I had to speed up the clip a little bit so I don't get copyrighted because he's playing some type of music.
Ilhan Omar, who is famous as one of the dumbest, of course, members of Congress, she hates whites, and she just says that.
Our country should be more fearful of white men across our country because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
So she said white men are causing the most death, and like I said before, you just heard Tam Walsh said the same thing. So in case y'all didn't hear it, listen to her say that white men is the one causing more death, and then now you hear Tam Walsh saying we should be worried about white men, not Somalians. Check it out.
Ilhan Omar, who is famous as one of the dumbest, of course, members of Congress, she hates whites, and she just says that.
Our country should be more fearful of white men across our country because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
You move to white country.
Okay, I'm going to pause that there. And folks, let me tell you here, I have not caused any deaths in the country, so you don't have to worry about this, white man. Okay, this video does come from the real Adogg. All right, let me show you here and show you that I've given him a thumbs up and I am subscribed to his channel. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and see what Vince Dow has to say about Republican odds surge in 2026 election as Trump makes major announcement on replacing Obamacare. That sounds pretty interesting. Let's take a listen.
It's the Unaffordable Care Act, and everybody knew it. Again, I want the money to go directly to the people so you can buy your own health care. You'll get much better health care at a much lower price. The only losers will be insurance companies that have gotten rich and the Democrat Party, which is totally controlled by those same insurance companies.
So let's talk about the midterms today and potentially the key issues that could single-handedly decide the results of next year's elections, because I think as it pertains to the presidential address that Trump just gave to the nation tonight, that's largely what it was about, trying to set the tone for Republicans going into next year on the messaging of healthcare and economy. And that's very timely because as we speak right now, the Republican Congress is currently trying to pass something on healthcare, right? An alternative solution to the absolute expensive disaster that was Democrat-led Obamacare. And I think the situation you're watching right now, I want people to be very aware of this, is that on one hand, things are starting to look much better for Republicans going to next year as of this current moment, right? The generic ballot lead in the polls that Democrats were enjoying back in October and around November when they had the quote unquote blue wave, right? The last election cycle is largely dissipating. And after all, that shouldn't be much of a surprise to anyone because we are well familiar with the fact that Democrats basically use the dirty trick of trying to shut down the government in order to win an election. And that issue has kind of dissipated. So now things have to come back to reality and the Democrats are still a highly unpopular party. However, before you get too excited about that, this is very important to understand. Democrats always have a dirty trick, right? The government shutdown was only the most recent one. In 2024, it was the indictments trying to assassinate Trump and even replacing their candidate basically at the last minute, right? A little money in the bank contract style thing. In 2022, It was mobilizing their voter base over Roe v. Wade. In 2020, maybe the most infamous example was COVID, BLM, and the changing of election laws. Well, I think as we watch right now, it is pretty clear that this whole Obamacare thing is the Democrats' dirty trick in 2026. Let me explain. What they're essentially looking to do here is actually they can say all they want about how they want to have more affordable healthcare. It's bogus. Look at their political actions. The agenda is to actually raise healthcare costs next year for a at least select group of Americans. Blame the Republicans for that, even though they did it, much like the government shutdown, because they refused to reach any willing or meaningful compromise on anything, right? And then basically try to whip up people and mobilize them to vote. And given the fact that currently, right, because of the fact that Republicans haven't really fixed the issue, Democrats destroy Republicans on healthcare, and we've seen how Democrats can play these types of games, I'm looking at it right now and basically saying that if Republicans don't fix this healthcare issue with a viable alternative, which, by the way, Trump has presented that viable alternative, I think it's a very good plan, but it's struggling to pass in Congress right now for reasons we'll explain, then it's going to be very difficult for Republicans in the midterms. I'm just going to say that straight up. I mean, it's even possible they potentially get blown out if Democrats effectively weaponize this healthcare issue. However, if we can take that off the table, right, and actually fix healthcare for the American people, and then now we're the party that wins on healthcare. By the way, as it pertains to the economy, I think it's going to be better by this time next year than it is right now. As I've long explained, we're in a recovery period. Big, beautiful bill is going to take effect. Still cleaning up the Biden COVID stimulus disaster, right? That'll be in a better situation. Then things are looking pretty good. But let's explain all of this right now, right? What's currently happening? Why are the Democrats beginning to slip in the polls? And then tie that to this whole kind of Obamacare issue, because again, this is very important. This is something Trump just talked about. We'll break that all down, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate the support. And that said, I'll just start off with the data again to explain why we're starting to do better right now. So this is now post-government shutdown. Everything's kind of gone back to normal. Well, currently, according to Quinnipiac University, which keep in mind historically has been a pretty left-leaning poll, especially in these midterm elections. Well, back in October, Democrats had a +9 lead in the generic congressional ballot. Maybe that was kind of a sign, actually, that, hey, they were about to do pretty well in the New Jersey and Virginia elections. But now, as of December, ladies and gentlemen, that number has only gone down to Democrats +4. Keep in mind, this is a left-leaning pollster. So if you want to say that the real number is, say, anywhere between D+1 to D+3, keep in mind, even a narrow popular vote victory by the Democrats doesn't necessarily guarantee that they would even win the House, right? It depends how that all breaks down. So not a great result overall, especially when you're the opposition party who historically does pretty well in these midterms. Worth noting, too, at a similar point in the 2018 cycle, voters favored Democrats by a 14-point margin, and 2018 was a blue wave. So thus far, not seeing any indications of the blue wave. You can look to the results last November and say, well, that's the proof, right? That's the indication. But I think Republicans said the same thing when Glenn Youngkin won in Virginia in 2021. Look what happened. Turns out a lot can change in a year. We're already starting to see the trend lines, perhaps, that things may start to be changing even in the span of a year. By the way, as it pertains to the approval rating of the Democrat Party, it's worth noting that has only dropped, right? Early on in the Trump presidency, it was kind of a meme. Hey, they're at like a 20 to 25, 30% approval rating. Ladies and gentlemen, in the same Quinnipiac poll right now, they are at 18%. That's right, a -55 approval rating. So clearly things are not actually truly good for them, right? They're not a popular party. Their candidates suck. Their messaging sucks. But as I said, what do they always do in elections? These dirty tricks. Okay, that said,
Okay, I'm going to pause that here. And Uncloudy gave a great chat here. Personally, I don't think you can vote your way out of a corrupt election system. And I believe you're absolutely right. And that's why I've been talking about this for the past 5 years, 4.5 years. It's the whole reason I started Mertech.com and my channel here on Rumble. I had a channel on YouTube, but they shut me down. No, you can't. But I believe that Donald Trump is uncovering corruption. Donald Trump and his crew behind him are uncovering this corruption, and the only thing we can do is get the word out. I believe that in this next election, there will be some serious changes made as far as allowing illegals to vote, or more to the point, not allowing. We can only wait and see, and we can keep our fingers crossed, but I think Donald Trump is trying to uncover this and show people that we need to have a more stable election system. And it wouldn't surprise me if they did have National Guard people standing around the polling areas. That would definitely keep... Now, that's not going to stop mail-in voting. That's something that has to be addressed. But we've got, 11 months till the next election, 10 and a half months? So let's just keep our fingers crossed and go with that. Thank you. Thank you, Uncloudy.
Let's explain this Obamacare issue. We've kind of gone over this a couple times, but we'll briefly recap that and then again explain what the Democrats are seeking to do in this election. So first of all, since you've heard a lot about the Obamacare tax subsidies and maybe you're not sure exactly what that's referring to, let me break this down. So essentially, what Obamacare did, first of all, was corporate socialism. Okay, they gave a bunch of subsidies to the insurance companies. That's right. That's what liberals did. The supposedly people who are fighting against big business gave something like, I think it was like $40 billion or something like that in government subsidies to insurance companies. The logic there, right? The reason they're giving that money is because these things, these tax credits basically exist to lower the cost of health insurance for a very select group of people in this country. Essentially, if you are on your own private marketplace health insurance plan, so you're not getting your healthcare through your employer like most Americans do, number one. And number two, if you're basically within the working class, right, making anywhere from, say, between $20,000 to like $60,000, $70,000, below $20,000 doesn't apply, you're on Medicaid, right? But kind of in that ballpark, maybe independent contractors, people like that, then these government subsidies exist to lower your health insurance premiums, although it's worth noting, I don't think anyone's Obamacare premiums are really all that low these days. And by the way, in the process of doing so, right, Obamacare added all of these subsidies, new regulations, all this garbage, these rules where essentially all the healthy people have to pay more in order for like the obese person or the illegal alien tax negative individual to receive free or cheaper healthcare. That overall, the Obamacare system has massively raised the cost of health insurance for everyone. You wonder, by the way, why your premiums have exploded so much in the past 10 years. It has nothing to do with Republicans. Republicans didn't write the healthcare laws. No, this has been the exact byproduct of Obamacare and the failed liberal approach to thinking that corporate socialism and mass subsidies and mass regulation would somehow drive down costs for Americans, which clearly it did the opposite.
For 15 long years, Americans have now faced skyrocketing premiums, fewer quality choices, inefficient care, and widespread fraud, waste, and abuse. Benchmark premiums on the Obamacare marketplace for every plan, listen to this, they've increased 80% overall since 2014, and they're continuing to rise. The Unaffordable Care Act marketplace has resulted in lower quality plan offerings and less consumer choices to date. Fraud is absolutely rampant. Paragon Health is one of the analyst groups, and they estimate there's over 6.4 million people who are improperly enrolled in the Obamacare exchanges. And a recent GAO study, the Government Accountability Office, found some staggering facts. It proved what we all know intuitively about the fraud that's involved in this program. They found that the Obamacare subsidy system lacks even the most basic guardrails to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse. And I think that study is something that you should all dig into. It should be on the front page of every newspaper because it is shocking and alarming.
Okay, well, there you have it. So if Obamacare is really this bad, then don't Republicans only stand to gain from allowing their tax credits to expire? Well,
okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. And I want to interject a little bit here. Yes, if they can get the information out. And that's what we have to do, folks. We have to get this information out. Now, something that for some reason I haven't heard, but this is something that the Democrats ought to say is the Democrats want to enrich their billionaire friends in the insurance industries and pharmaceutical industries. That's what these subsidies are all about, is to enrich their billionaire friends. That's the same thing that they say about the Republicans. Oh, they're only for their billionaire friends. They should turn that shit around on them, unless, of course, they're part of the grift. What do you think? Let me know. Share this out with your friends, contacts, and family members so they can be aware of what's going on. Because all they hear is the bullshit from the Democrats on the mainstream media, not the truth about how the Democrats are only interested in enriching their billionaire friends. They just give $40 billion or more to the insurance industries. Oh, spend it how you wish. Oh, you have to increase premiums? Well, we tried. But the Republicans want to take that away. So they don't care about health care. We do, because we throw $40 billion at the problem and don't even try to find out where it's going. Unfreaking believable. Okay, as you can see, this video here does come from Vince Dow. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Let's jump back here and slide down to Wendy Bell. And I'm going to start this out right at the very beginning of her video, because in my extra episode C today, I did a raid on Wendy Bell's video. So she's going to call me out on that, and then I want to get the kudos for that, and then I'm going to move it up to about the 9-minute mark. So let's take a listen and see what Wendy has to say. Yay! That's me! That's me! Okay, let's slide it up here to the 9-minute. Oh, too far. Here we go. Okay. And Cloudy says there's no sound, so let me do a refresh on this. Okay, so hang on a minute. I'm going to do a quick refresh here on Rumble. All right, let me pull up Wendy Bell again. All right, sorry about that. Let's take a listen here.
Somebody gave us $20 just for showing up.
Hey, see, that's how I talk about making a living, right?
Sonny James 67. Merry Christmas, Wendy and Brock. Love you guys.
Oh, that was awful nice. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. How's everybody today? It is great to be here.
I'm living the dream.
Hi, Glow. Welcome, Murtech. Glad you're here.
That's me.
Somebody new. Oh, my.
Okay, 9-minute and 11 mark.
For which it stands, one
Right
nation,
after her Pledge
under
of
God,
Allegiance, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. You know what? There are people out there who are going to hurt other people, no matter how many laws we pass, how much we try to litigate behavior, how much we try to put in writing some code of conduct. People are going to do what they're going to do. And we're seeing the fruits of people allowing indiscriminately cultures from all over the planet onto their shores. It's not just America. It's in Germany. It's in France. It's in the UK. They're canceling all of these beautiful traditions in these special countries because it's not safe to be a Christian. It's not safe to be a Jew. And that's despicable. And that was predictable. And that was warned. And they did it anyway. The stories that we have today are mind-bending. It's not just a couple $1 billion, you guys, in Minnesota. It may well be $18 billion of welfare fraud, of Medicaid fraud, SNAP fraud. And now, what are we hearing about Haitians in Massachusetts ripping off SNAP? It's like we've made everything so easy because we stopped paying attention. You know, COVID changed that. If there was ever a silver lining of something awful that you and I have been through, it was sitting back and watching the collective meltdown of people in your orbit, friends of yours, people maybe even in your own family, losing their ever-loving minds over something that just didn't make sense. And you went along with it for a while because you're like, look, I'm a good team player. I believe in experts. I do trust science. I have no reason not to. And so if you want me to stay home for a couple weeks, okay. And then a couple weeks led to a couple months. And then a couple months led to a couple mandates. And then we saw this little tyrant disease where previously relatively insignificant people started breathing and tasting power. It's like they held that chalice up to their lips and their tongue tasted it for the first time and they were hooked. I don't get that. I don't understand that. It seems to happen to a lot of people and they lose rational thought and they do crazy things. We cannot litigate our way out of that. There's going to be people who are malleable, who are connable, right? Who are convincible. But I believe the lion's share of you listening to me right now are wide awake. We might not know the depth of the fraud. We might not know how deep the swamp is. We might not realize how pervasive the stench the sewer is, right? How pervasive it is around us. But we're aware. And every single day we kind of chisel away at another suck situation. And then all of a sudden there comes this wild story, right? I've been following this Brown University shooting and the professor at MIT. Now I follow these things loosely because you know what? I remember being on the air in 1999, I think it was, when Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris decided to blow up all of their classmates in Colorado. That was the beginning of this horrendous chapter of indiscriminate school violence. It's like, where else can we cherry pick a captive audience where there are rules that we have litigated that nobody's allowed to have anything on their person or anywhere near them with which to defend themselves? Like, in what world does that make sense? In what world do you label a place a drug-free zone or a gun-free zone if you're not going to put people there to protect the innocent? You know, I have a story today about the FBI under Joe Biden, not just fudging the numbers, but absolutely sitting on the numbers of armed citizens who take action and neutralize criminal shooters. And yet I wonder, why do Democrats want to take your guns away? We have a Republican Party that, thank God, is hook, line, and sinker into voter ID, proof of citizenship, get rid of the machines, same-day ballots, paper ballots, hand recount, lots of oversight. We've got Democrats who will go to the mat to prevent that. Got to ask yourself why. You know why. We've got a president and a secretary of war who are blowing up drug dealers at sea. And you have Democrats who are worried about the due process rights of strangers who want to kill our people. You've got to ask yourself why. And in the strangest twist of stories this week comes this. They figured out who the maniac was, who killed the 2 students at Brown and injured 9 others. And they figured out it's the same guy who shot and killed an MIT professor. And you know how they connected the dots? It wasn't from super secret surveillance. It wasn't from some complex satellite system that allowed the FBI to geolocate. It wasn't because the guy was sloppy and did something with a car and did this, or it was because there was a homeless guy who was living inside the bowels of the physics building or what have you, and watched the gunman. And watched the gunman carefully. And he's like, he's not dressed appropriately for the cold that we're having. A homeless guy. And so he followed him. And he followed him around the corner. And he watched his car. And he watched the guy, the suspect who yesterday killed him, or killed himself, and they found his body yesterday, right? Follow him, watch his car, go up to the car, and said to the guy, why are you walking away from your car? Why are you walking around the corner? Your car's back there. The gunman said, why are you harassing me? And a homeless guy goes on Reddit, and he's like, look, everybody. How he has Reddit, I don't know. Look, everybody, right? I saw this guy, very suspicious. If anybody in the area wants to know, police should be looking for a gray such and such model vehicle with Florida license plates. It strikes me as a rental. A homeless guy writes that. Somebody sees it on Reddit, calls the police, the authorities, the FBI, what have you. They track down who the homeless guy is. They bring him in, and he cracks the case. He cracks the case. And because of him, they connect the MIT professor's murder to this horrible murder, the double murder at Brown. Right? And they connect the dots, and they figure out at least the professor and the suspect, they were connected back in Portugal many years ago. The connection with Brown, still fuzzy. But because of a homeless man who was suspicious, who decided to do a little sleuthing on his own, and who decided to actually confront the guy. Dude, what are you doing? And knew it was weird. Police were able to go to a storage facility where they tracked the vehicle, where he was right. It was a rental. The guy had switched the plates. He had done all this stuff. He was using fake credit cards, blah, blah, blah. Why? I don't know yet, but they found his body. Come on. Now, why am I telling you this story? That's all of us. You've got to be that homeless guy. You've got to be the one who pays attention. You've got to have your head on a swivel. You cannot be afraid to speak up and say something. See, the DEI chapter of woke garbage that the left hosed us all with, wake up from that slumber. Do not worry about their monikers. Don't care what they say. Those are badges of honor. When you speak up and you do your God-given right. That is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. It is not one man anymore who's going to save this country. It is an army. And it's not just MAGA. It's not just Republicans. It's not just conservatives. It's got to be everybody. Now, the Democrats, they can be down with that and join with us and save this country, or every single day we will expose them further for their role in trying to destroy the greatest place on planet Earth. We'll come for you. When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, my boyfriend, Harry Enton, data geek over at CNN, flapping his arms about Democrats. Congressional Democrats not doing so well, and it doesn't look good for the midterms. Do you believe it? You find out next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
Okay, I'm going to move this forward here, but let's take a listen here to about the Misfit Boxing.
Get ready, fight fans. On December 20th, the biggest crossover boxing event of the year drops live from Dubai only on Rumble Premium.
It's Misfits Mania, the fight before Christmas, headlined by Andrew Tate stepping into the ring against heavyweight champion Chase Damore for Misfits Boxing's heavyweight title.
This isn't just another bout. It's a global event with a stacked undercard and all-out action you can't miss.
Tune in exclusively on Rumble Premium and witness drama, power, and one of the most talked about clashes of the year. Mark your calendars, December 20th, because Misfits Mania is about to deliver fireworks. Sign up today.
Don't bias our. So as we told, we're not biased because average you believe. Oh my. Welcome back to the Wendy Bell radio program. Okay, so I'm going to preface this the way I always do. Whether or not you believe polls, and I think they tell us not really what the sentiment is. I think most polls tend to tell us the average prevailing hope of the ruling class. I think the deep state often deploys quote unquote polling because how biased can you be? You can be biased and nuanced in every single question. And I know pollsters sphincter up when they're like, oh, we don't bias our things. We're not biased. You're like, come on now. Come on now. Some of the questions you ask, why are we even polling this? This is kind of stupid. This, however, I think is kind of interesting. So as we told you yesterday, Quinnipiac dropped this pretty big poll. They do it kind of quarterly, and it's the presidential approval. How do you feel about his cabinet? You know, what are the top 10 things that are bothering you? And then what do you think about Congress? And Congress, the congressional Democrats, are sucking some serious wind. 18% approval. And it's really bad within their own ranks. Harry Enton catches wind of this, right? And he's going to set you up with, oh my gosh, this is a much bigger deal than the Democrats are letting you know. And then he projects ahead to the midterms and looks back in time to see how Democrats were doing under other Republican presidents, when normally you would imagine the party in power. Usually at the midterm, it switches. It's just kind of historically how it goes. Here's Harry Enton, number one. He's talking about the Quinnipiac polling, and he's talking about, oh my, Democrats, you better pay attention. Here you go. That's right now.
Yeah, I mean, Democrats in the minds of the American public are lower than the Dead Sea. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look. The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress, you said it, Kate Baldwin, the lowest ever. Look at this. Overall, they are 55 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%. It's even worse when you look at independents. Look at this. Negative 61 points. That means that their approval rating is 61 points lower than their disapproval rating. Quinnipiac has been polling this question for the better part of the 21st century. They have never found Democrats, at least those in Congress, in worse shape than they are right now.
Well, and I don't think that's even remotely shocking to anybody paying attention. So I'd like to believe that. I'd like to make that feel good inside. Like the average American can see with the Schumer shutdown that yielded nothing, but exposed quite a bit of preference on the left, preference for illegal aliens to continue getting free health care, but not for you, right? I mean, I think we all could kind of see what was going on there, and the Schumer shutdown forced us to see it even more. But Harry goes on and he's like, look, there is a burning question out of this. It's bigger than independents having a 61% drop in approval for the Democrat Party and 55 for overall. And it is, how do Democrats view the Democrats in Congress? Are they kumbaya or are they ticked off?
What about Democrats on Democrats? So part of the reason overall is so low is independents are driving it low. But that's not the only reason it's so low. What about Democrats on Democrats? Democrats net approval rating of congressional Democrats. I want you to keep in mind, they had never rated Democrats negatively until this year. And right now, what are we talking about? We're talking about a net approval rating from Democrats. This is Democrats on Democrats. Their approval rating is actually lower than the disapproval rating. And that is quite the drop from October. I think during the shutdown, there was a bit of a boost for Democrats, right? There was a rallying around the flag effect going on. But Democrats did not like how that shutdown turned out. They have returned against Democrats in Congress. And you mentioned Dan Goldman in that intro. One of the reasons that Dan Goldman is in trouble right now in a potential primary against Brad Ladner is because at this point, the Democratic base is so upset with Democrats. So even if Democrats take back Congress, don't be surprised if Dan Goldman ain't there because of numbers like this.
And wouldn't that be a travesty, right? Please? And then the second burning question before Harry wraps up his segment. Go back in time, Harry. Tell us when Democrats were in this position before. They had a Republican president, right? and they were gonna retake control, say, of the House in the midterms. How did that go before? What was the advantage at this point Democrats had in the races for the midterm versus where they stand now? Listen.
But of course, the question is, can Democrats still take back Congress, even with their ratings as low as this? The answer is yes, but in my mind, it's definitely hurting them. Why do I say that? Because take a look at the generic congressional ballot with a Republican president at this point. Look, Democrats are ahead, but they're only ahead by 4 points. Historically, that is quite weak. At this point in the 2017, 2018 cycle is more than double that at 10 points. The same back during George W. Bush's second term in office, where you saw, of course, the Democrats were also ahead by 10 points. So we're talking about a lead of less than half what we normally expect. And I think that's why at this point, there are a lot of Democrats who might be thinking, hey, we can spike that ball in the end zone. But the numbers at this point say, hold on just a minute. Yes, you're on your way to a congressional majority, but it's still a long time. And with numbers like this, considerably weaker than historically speaking, it might be a tougher road to hoe.
Now, I want you to think about that. If they retake control of the House, everything legislatively stops.
All right. Speaking of stopping, I've got to come back here and listen to what he says.
To hoe. Just a minute. Yes, you're on your way to a congressional majority, but it's still a long time. And with numbers like this, considerably weaker than historically speaking, it might be a tougher road to hoe.
It's not. The saying isn't. It's not a tougher road to hoe. When you hoe something in a garden, you hoe the row of corn, beans, tomatoes, whatever. It's a row of vegetables. It's not a road. Who's going to go out and hoe a road? It's a tougher row to hoe. Okay? Row and hoe kind of rhyme anyway. It's not road, it's row. A row of corn, a row of green beans, a row of tomatoes, a row of whatever in your garden. Whatever.
Now, I want you to think about that. If they retake control of the House, everything legislatively stops. A Democrat-controlled House means Democrats control every single committee. They control all of the narrative. They stop this administration in its tracks, and we're left with an impotent John Thune who's had umpteen chances to nuke the filibuster and freaking pass the president's agenda. You see what's at stake? Indeed. Well, when we come back, we're not even close to being done with talking about Minnesota's fraud. There was a press conference yesterday. It will melt your face off, okay? So get something to catch it with, because we're about to do that to you next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
All right, well, I'm not going to melt your face off here, but if you tune back in to my daily news wrap-up, you can melt your face then, okay? So at that point, it's your decision if you want your face to melt off. Come back to my daily news wrap-up because I will finish this video from Wendy Bell. But in the meantime, let's click over here and show you that this video does come from Wendy Bell. I'm following her channel. I've given her a thumbs up. And she's right, folks. We have to be participants in this, in getting the information out. And how we can do that is by sharing this. Let me come back over here. And, all right here, if you scroll down, there is a share button here. If you were to click on that, it would bring up this little box here. You can share it on Facebook, on Truth Social, you can email it out on X or on WhatsApp. I'm going to go ahead and share this right here with you on Facebook. Now you click that button, and depending on what Facebook is doing right now, and this is the wonders of live stream here. Okay. Normally it doesn't take quite this long. Hello. Hello. I wonder if Rumble's being... Oh, I can't do anything. Huh. I'm locked up. Unbelievable. Fuck. All right, folks. I hope you're still with me here. I don't know what happened. I got locked up there. Whew. What a deal. Okay, at any rate, share this information out with your friends, contacts, and family members. I am going to copy this live chat into a comment. Boom. Close that out. Slide down here. Put this in a comment. All right. Let me clean it up a little bit. But yes, if you can help me share this information out with your friends, contacts, and family members, that's what we need to do in order to make people aware of what's really going on, rather than having to rely on the lies and propaganda of the lying legacy mainstream media. And these videos, let me remind you of this, the videos that I've shared with you are videos that come directly from the producers. If you want to see more of this information, the link to the videos and the links to the producer's channel are in the description box below. And these videos that I share with you are videos that I've posted here on Mertech.com. Right, there's the video from Adogg that I shared with you. Down here's the video from Wendy Bell that I shared with you. Here's the video from Vince Dow that I shared with you. Here's the video from ACLJ Sekulow that I shared with you. I'd like to share all this information with you, but unfortunately, I don't have enough time to do that. That's why I have put together my daily news wrap-up. And let's jump over here and look at the playlist on that. We're going to start out with some information from Benny Johnson before we get back into Wendy Bell. Democrat judge found guilty after humiliating FBI arrest for hiding illegal alien from the feds. That is progress. Do you remember this story? This was like last summer. Early last summer or last spring, where this judge, there were some ICE agents that went into the courtroom and was going to pick this guy up, a criminal that had been arrested numerous times, going to pick this guy up, and this judge instructed them to go talk to the head court person there, the head judge, I guess, in that courthouse. And when they went to talk to him, she took him out the back door and let him go. Apparently, that's against the law. That's harboring and aiding a criminal. So, I have not listened to this, but I can't wait to, and I can't wait to share it with you. So, go ahead and take a break right now. Grab a cup of coffee and a donut or a sandwich and a soft drink or a beer, and meet me back here at 9:30, and we'll get rolling with this, and then finish up with Wendy Bell. And then I found this interesting, too, from Russian television. Trump versus Europe, why the EU is losing influence in Washington, with Dr. Gunnar Beck. Okay, so I'm kind of anxious to get into that and share that with you too. Okay, I've been doing this so long, and I've had so many people continue to watch this. I feel like we're just like a family sitting around the coffee table talking about what the hell's been going on all day. So please join me at 9:30, and we will get started on this. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for spending your time with me here. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.